What up, everybody? It's Zach Blumner and Brian Ritchie. This is the Craft Beer Playbook, episode 13, baby. Lucky 13. And we're honored today. We're going to have a special guest with us here, as you can see in the video. Our guy, Dustyn, over there from King's Bluff Brewery. Not quite in Tampa Bay, but still a big part of the craft beer community. And that's the beauty of that community. Me and Brian talk about it all the time is, far, wide, wherever you're at, whatever you drink, whatever you like. It's such a wide ranging community, but also so small. And when you do run into somebody else that's in that community, it's just like they're naturally a part of it like anybody else would be. So we're going to get into some King's Bluff Brewery beers here as well. But Dustyn, welcome into episode 13, brother. Appreciate some time with you, man.
No, thanks, Zach. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's I'm an hour behind you, so I haven't quite made it to beer o'clock yet, but we're getting
Anytime's beer o'clock, right? Especially for us. We got four great beers here that I think my parents, when they were up visiting and came into your brewery there, and this is obviously how we got a chance to meet, I think they tried these four, and I think they were the recommendations of either you or whoever was working the bar that day. So I'm going to let you know what we have, and then if you can maybe just kind of, and I'm going to pour them up, we're going to try them, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about each one.
We usually do. So, Dustyn, a little heads up on how we usually roll through things here. And again, Dustyn is in Clarksville, Tennessee with the King's Bluff Brewery. We usually drink one at a time and just kind of go through it. But we wanted to kind of, get your thought process on each of the four. So we're going to do more of a sampling than we are more of a chugging, rather than us try to pound four tall boys in the next 15 minutes with you, man. But as Brian starts to pour these up and go through these, just give us a little background on King's Bluff Brewery, how long you guys have been around there in Clarksville, Tennessee, and just how you came up with the name, just some more background, man.
Sure. So I homebrewed for about 8 years before I started putting all this together. My background's in marketing and chemistry, which typically don't go together, but it worked out really well. The breweries, we opened up the door in January of 2019. We established in my basement, we formed the LLC in 2017. So that was really the birth of King's Bluff Brewery, and it's named after a rock climbing base here in town. It's kind of a well-known amongst hikers and climbers, but otherwise it's kind of a hidden gem. It's really beautiful. And with our town being mostly a military town because of the 101st out of Fort Campbell, and a college town because of Austin Peay State University, which is about a block that way, we wanted to do something that was a little different, that was more intrinsic to just the town and the community itself. We're a community-focused brewery. We try and do as much altruism as possible, putting good back out into the community. And we brought on a pretty good catalog of beers. And since then, with our awesome staff, like Josh behind me, he's on this side.
Hey, Josh.
We've been able to grow and expand and experiment with a lot of beer. Our motto is kind of that Fortis Fortuna Adiuvant, that fortune favors the bold.
Nice.
So, what do you have to lose? If it's really bad, you just name it something else. A lot of people they'll sour it or whatever. But the way we see it is, if you don't try, then you're not gonna at least experiment. You don't try, you're never going to fail. You're never going to learn.
It's funny you say we can always just name it something else. I wish Brian and I kept track, because the Craft Beer Playbook wasn't our first option on branding for our podcast and what we want to do here. I can't remember the other ones, but I promise you they were not that good.
Yeah.
I remember us talking about different ideas. Just when you get a name that feels right, it sinks in, you sleep on it. I'm sure you feel the same way about King's Bluff Brewery. It's funny. We were actually wondering if you guys and you gambled at all. I was like, I wonder if it has anything to do with poker, and we were clearly way off on that.
Right.
Not quite.
Not quite. Much more of an outdoorsy kind of approach, but I do gamble a little bit. No, we went through several iterations of the name, but I don't know how many of our beers that we thought up the name first and then built the recipe around the name. So we've been pretty lucky. We've only had one or two batches that didn't really go the way we wanted them to go. And being open for a little over 2 years now, I think that's pretty successful. It's growing pretty mellow. It's not Clarksville has a hard time with it. We're not a bar. We're very much a brewery, and it's new to this area, and it's neat to see people adopting that.
So Dustyn, how did you? So you mentioned that you have a chemistry background. So your version of being a mad scientist is being a brewer. So how did your passion for craft beer really get started, and when did that start for you?
Honestly, for me, it started in the back of a warehouse with a couple other dudes where we were trading beer for the rental space. And,
that's actually not uncommon. Like, that's not like you say. Like, you said it like it was funny, but like I feel like that's a pretty normal place for brewers to kind of get going.
Yeah, you're right. The more I talk to more brewers out there, and my couple of mentors I have out of Nashville, we're just 40 minutes north of Nashville, and that's kind of another place where it got started. I got sick of driving to go get good beer, and it seemed like all of a sudden other breweries started popping up here in town. There's 7 of us now, where there used to be 1. So it's kind of cool to see a craft beer scene start to develop. But yeah, my story is not unique at all. It was just mostly a way to get out of the house for a little bit, start a hobby, and that kind of turned into an obsession. And thankfully, I've got enough people in my corner that we could bounce things off of with better business acumen than I have, and actually start something that's taken root.
Ready to start this the actual drinking
I'm
here,
ready
Brian?
to dive in. So Dustyn, I'm gonna let you know the 4 that we have here. And first, I want to comment on the beautiful color. I mean, we got a nice flight here. It's like a whole beer rainbow right now. It looks amazing. So the first one I've got here, talk to us about Oats. I did it again.
You gotta say it like Britney Spears. You're not saying it like Britney.
Oats. I did it again.
I can't believe you just did that.
So give us the background on this one, Dustyn.
Hashtag Free Britney. I think we had something to do with that.
I'm with you. I watched the special on like FX or something. I got roped into it. I'm with you, bro.
Absolutely terrifying. So a lot of what we do is either based on stuff that's intrinsic to the town or music. We're all, a bunch of nerds when it comes to music. That's actually the product of my head brewer and GM, Jessica. She wanted to do something that was a little bit more oated, and then utilizing a lot of South American and New Zealand hops, with Yata being the main one. And it's kind of cool. You get a lot of pineapple, guava, and passion fruit.
Yeah.
But there's no fruit added to it at all. That's all just derived from the hop utilization.
It's funny. Like, I'm a big, like, I sniff. As you can tell, like, I spend a lot of time with my nose in my beer. No, it's always funny because, like, I don't even know if I'm smelling anything right. Like, I just caught, like, from when I started drinking craft beer, I noticed, like, the best, knowledgeable, most craft beer drinkers, like, they smell their beers real hard. So I just do it out of habit.
Just to look like
for sure. But, like, I thought this was going to taste hoppier, but you mentioned some of those other flavors that, like, really find their way, I think, onto my palate from it. So this is good, though. And another thing I noticed with some of the cans, you put what it pairs well with in terms of, like, you can go hiking. And me and Brian always talk about that. Like, down here in Florida, I'll be like, oh, that's a beer I'll drink when I'm golfing. Oh, that's a beer I'll drink, if it's raining and I'm stuck at home, right? Like, it's just, it's weird. But I think the more you drink craft beer, the more you realize, like, there really are different themes that different styles of beer fit better into.
Absolutely. And I think layering out those flavors kind of helps with that. Because, I mean, who really wants to take a stout out on the boat? Other than my wife. She will drink a dark beer on the beach.
God bless her.
It's insane. But that's also why
we style, right? She knows what she likes.
Right. That's why I have to keep at least 1 or 2 dark beers on tap all year, or I will get fired in the same day.
That's awesome. So I have a question, because you mentioned that there's actually no fruit in this, but you get the fruity taste from the hops. Now, obviously, me and Zach, we're not sommeliers of beer and hops by any means.
He did not have that word down a month and a half ago. He has been practicing.
Study that word.
Oh my God, good job.
But that question is always interesting to me. So how do you learn? Like, how have you learned more about which types of hops pair well and which ones create a certain type of flavor profile?
There's a lot of research. We test batch everything we do before we spin it up into a big batch. So you can see the tanks behind me. It's a 5-barrel system. But we still break out my homebrew equipment and do 5-gallon batches of every beer at least a couple times before we spin it up. Every once in a while, we'll hit it right, and we'll do a batch off of one test batch, a larger batch of it, but that's rare. So a lot of it's just reading research and trying it out.
So I like to try to dig into people's memory banks when it comes to craft beer, because you realize the more you drink, the harder that gets to do. Yeah. Do you remember the first quote unquote craft beer that you had?
I do. It was a local beer here in town, which unfortunately burned down about 3 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
I know. It's a horrible freak accident, and they kind of established craft beer here in Clarksville back in 1994. It's called the Black Horse, and they're good people, hard workers, good beer. Most of their operation is run out of Alcoa, Tennessee, which is in East Tennessee. But it was their Barnstormer Red that I remember having the first time, and I immediately joined their mug club. And to this day, red ales are still my favorite. I judge most breweries on how they do a red because it's a simple style and an older style, but it's easy to screw up. A lot of weird stuff can happen with it. So if you do that right, you're doing something, in my opinion.
That's awesome. And a quick question here, Dustyn, before we dive into the second one here, but to kind of piggyback off what you just said there with different styles, I know that when it comes to regions in the U.S., like certain regions get known for doing certain things. Obviously, you got the New England style IPAs now that have become more popular across the U.S.
from?
In New England. And so talk to me about like that region up there by you guys in the Tennessee area. Like what's kind of the main staple of a lot of the breweries up there with you?
It's weird. Craft beer is really just now taking root, more so in the South. We're seeing it pick up across the Southeast especially. In this area in particular with Clarksville, they like sweet. The sweeter stouts, the oats, I did it again because it's less aggressive. Our flagship IPA, which I think you have a can of it there.
We do got it. Liberty,
we're going to that next, by the way. I know it's not in order, but just based on the color of these, we're definitely going to the IPA next.
I would. That's we sell that one 3-1 over everything else, but it's a Valencia orange forward. It's got enough hops to it, but it's lower impact. Yeah, give it a try.
Oh yeah, you're right. Low impact. So that's
it's got enough of a hop backbone on it to where it's not cloying. Like it's not going to coat your tongue with the hops. You get ready for that next sip. And Clarksville's new enough to the craft beer scene that trying to do anything too aggressive with them. We have some West Coast IPAs for the people that know what the hell they're doing, but typically for this region, maltier, sweeter, or sours, those go really well too. Although we don't make a sour.
It's tasty. Yeah, we got some can art on this one.
Liberty Park, yeah. So talk to us about the story behind this one.
So Liberty Park it's one of the newest parks in town. It's a beautiful spot. It's honestly just a great place to go and hang out. And again, one of those things that we wanted to do that was intrinsic to the community. And that's actually the first IPA recipe that I ever built. That was probably 7-8 years ago.
Oh wow. Okay. How many tries did it take you when you first started homebrewing? How many tries did it take you before you were really proud of a batch that came out?
I'm still not proud of any batch that I put out. Are you?
Oh, come on. You got a brewery now. You got to be proud of that.
Yeah. No, honestly, my first recipe I built was the bun and cream stout, right? Because, again, wife likes dark beer. So I've brewed that one probably 70 times at this point. And I make a little tweak here and there each time, take massive amounts of notes. So for me to be really proud of something like the bun and cream or the Liberty Park, 25, 50 times. Honestly, I could keep messing with it forever and still not be.
But very smart for you to go off the bat with a beer that your lady would like, so that she's on board, right? Like, I mean, how do you say no to that? Like, I can only imagine if I went to my fiance and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna work at opening a brewery. Also, the first beer I'm going to work on is one that you're going to love." That's brilliant. Good for you, Dustyn. That's the way to do it, man.
Look, that's just planning ahead. That's big picture thinking.
Yeah, that's great, man. Absolutely. So we know your wife's favorite style of beer. What's your go-to?
That's tough. It really depends on, what season it is, what the temperature is, what I'm doing, what I'm eating. Typically, like I said before, if I'm at a new place and they have a red, I'm going to dive into that one. And then I'm going to start picking apart IPAs because I love hops. I think it's one of the most interesting things in the world. So that's typically where I gravitate.
That's awesome.
Is there, so like obviously we're Florida based. Is there anything, not even necessarily Tampa Bay specific, but are there any craft beers or breweries just we want to know from the outside looking in that like sticks out to you Florida wise, or do you guys not get a lot of Florida stuff out there?
Yeah, I've got a couple stickers on my board for some Florida beers that I tried.
How great is the sticker stuff, by the way? Anywhere you go, any brewery, that's like the first, maybe not the first thing you notice. The first thing you notice probably is the draft list. But as you're like sipping on your first beer, you just start like looking at this, and that's every craft beer brewery I've ever been to. And you can just start looking through the stickers and like, oh my God, this is here. So my fiance, she's from Chicago, and they had Miker, which is like microphone up in Chicago. One of their stickers was on the like place we were just at. And we were like, what? How the hell did y'all get a Chicago sticker down here?
Right. Well, in my opinion also, because that's what we do here, a sticker should be free. It pisses me off when I walk into a brewery and they've got a $2 sticker. Like, what are you trying to prove? Like, you're doing me a favor by taking my brand and putting it on whatever you want to put it on. But no, there's Ancient City that I've tried.
Oh, that's up in St. Augustine. I know where that's at.
St. Augustine.
I lived there for a little while.
I know it's not really close to you guys, but Oyster City, Appalachia area, that's a really good one. And there's one out of Daytona. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But I've had a couple different ones that, there again, you just try so many that, and I'm not an Untapped user. I used to carry a notebook around, but anymore it just gets a little
old school, right? There you go. I got my dad. It's funny you said that. So I'm getting my dad into it, and he was up there visiting you guys. I'm sure you probably saw he was all excited. But he's got
your mom. Hey, your mom is all about the beers too. I got to give you mom.
Tell you,
oh, of course,
we were all cheerleaders for. I mean, it was awesome.
The only reason I bring up my dad is because I got him a notebook because he's not a big tech guy, so he doesn't use the Untapped features and things like that. So I was saying that I got him a notebook for his birthday where he can start to kind of write down some of this stuff. So when he goes to places like Kings Bluff, he can try it out and write what he likes because he's still trying to get into it, And my mom just found out now she likes sour. So they've been a ton of fun supporting this. And obviously that's why we're chatting with you today. So
I got to see this notebook. I gotta check this notebook out. It is the Craft Beer Playbook, episode 13. We're chatting with Dustyn from Kings Bluff Brewery over in Clarksville, Tennessee. Zach and Brian, as we are normally here drinking some good brews. Courtesy of Kings Bluff Brewery. So happy to be doing that. And I know we're going to dive into another one here. We are going to get a little darker. Brian, where are you taking us next?
So we've got Don't Be So Vanilla. What's the story on this one, Dustyn?
So again, that's another Jessica concoction. We wanted to do a porter for the winter months. We had some leftover vanilla that we're going to use in it. And it's just, it's super vanilla forward, but it still has a bit of that drier body from a porter.
You smell that vanilla on the front, and then you get it right away.
That's smooth too. I like it.
I'll say this though, when it comes to like different flavors and stuff, I think one of my pet peeves is if it says it like it's listed like don't be so vanilla. If the vanilla is too subtle to taste, I usually have an issue with stuff like that. I'd rather have it smack me than like just sneak up and never really be there. If it's gonna be in the name, if you're gonna advertise it that way, just embrace it. And I think this beer certainly does that. This is good, man. So I wanted to ask you, you had said, Dustyn, that you also do a podcast, right? Give you a chance free plug here on that. What's it called again?
Thank you. I didn't expect to cross promote, but that's awesome.
That's what we do, baby.
So back during the pandemic, when it started last year, my buddy Brad and I, we're a couple of film buffs. We typically just get hammered and rip a movie apart. But we didn't have a way to have a lot of touch points with our customers because we had to shut our doors for a little while. We did it speakeasy style where we could sell growlers and cans out the side door, but that interaction is what we all thrive off of. That's kind of our niche. Like, yeah, we make good beer, but our community and our customer service is kind of our other tenant. So this was a way for us to have another touch point. So we started this thing called Cinema on Tap, where we would take a movie, usually that Brad and I have watched somewhere in the past, and we either love it or we hate it, and then we pair either one of our beers or one of our guest taps with it. We do that every Sunday at 6:00 on Facebook Live.
What was the last movie you guys did? Do you remember?
I actually had to delete it. It was we did Space Jam, and
hey, you're right in the Craft Beer Playbook. You're in our world,
and I hated it.
Oh, did you hate it as a kid, or you?
I never watched it. I had never watched it.
Oh my god.
I'd never, and I love it.
Oh my god, Dustyn. Brian has seen like 5 movies in his life. I always make fun of him, so I won't knock you until I knock him.
Look, I've seen a lot of movies, but for whatever reason, Space Jam always kind of irked me because none of the voices sounded right for the Looney Tunes, and that bugged the shit out of me. So I just refused on principle. I finally got talked into watching it, and I had also gone to the Austin P football game beforehand, and
Nice.
I couldn't hang with the people in that suite at all. So by the time I got here, it didn't turn out great. So it's going to be our first lost episode. I think the one we did before that was Boondock Saints for St. Patrick's.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That fit. Yeah, that fits. That
I just
fits
rewatched that the other day. It's on Netflix.
I think they have a new one coming out. I want to say in the next year, because I looked at. So I got suckered into HBO Max like many did. So I got suckered into it because of all the things coming out. Godzilla and King Kong, by the way, in a day.
I'm excited. I love kaiju film.
Dude, it's going to be. The Rotten Tomatoes have said it's going to be really good. Everybody's saying really good things about it. I'm excited. But one of the ones on there is a new Boondock Saints movie, so I'm excited about that. It's funny because I'm a big cinephile too, and I bring up stuff all the time. And Brian rarely has seen the movies I talk about. So we had one of our earlier episodes. We were going back and forth about like how movies come out that are the same, because he was talking about Prestige, and I brought up The Illusionist.
Right.
And then somehow we ended up on Bug's Life and Ants.
Yep.
And I was like, this happens every year because these scripts are sold and they're picked up sometimes at the same time. What was the other one? The Mall Cop movies. There was like Observe and Report and then Paul Blart.
We actually have a name for that. We call it deep impacting someone's Armageddon. And it happens a lot in the craft beer industry. You'll see somebody come out with like this dope beer and it's like, shit, I have that in the fermenter right now. I'm gonna name it something similar. I got deep impacted.
That's crazy. We've talked about that too. With we've done these other pods with other brewers and other owners of breweries, and they say that too. It's like so much kind of gets copied and stolen and stuff and tweaked a little bit. That's funny that you put it like that.
The one brew and we're gonna move on to this other fourth beer here with Dustyn from Kings Bluff Brewery. Dustyn, the other one too that beer wise that I see a lot of, and then we at least down here in Tampa Bay, is the Dole Whip, because we're close to Disney, so like we have a lot of Disney. So we like Descent does one called Annual Pass Holder is the name of the beer. It's over in St. Petersburg. It's my favorite Dole Whip I've had, but we tried Enchanted Tiki Room from Hidden Springs, which is local too. That's one though that I've noticed a lot of places try to do and make it like a Disney inspired one.
And it's delicious. I mean, Dole Whip is
so good.
Good. So, and it translates, I would think that would translate well into like one of the slushy sours or again, something like the oats. I did it again. I think you could probably tweak that enough to get it close.
See, and it's funny you said the slushy sour. The last version I tried that was new to me was called Moana's Mustard. Moana from the Disney movie, and it was a slushy sour. That's exactly what it was, and it was pretty good. It was comparable to my favorite version for sure. That was also I don't remember who that was from. Jeez, like I said, you started drinking enough beer. It does blend a little bit, but
so I need a notebook.
Yeah, we're on Untapped at the Craft Beer Playbook. All right, get us into this last beer, Brian.
All right, now this one's all right. It's written in marker and it's starting to condensate here, so it's sweating off a little bit. But it looks like it says Yata Cold Brew Stout or Yadu.
Oh, yeah. That's a great beer. Okay, that kind of leads me into another thing. We work a lot with a lot of community partners. I think any brewery that is arrogant enough to think they're going to make it on their own, they're out of their mind. So especially during the pandemic, we teamed up with a lot of different restaurants that would actually deliver our beer to your home as long as you ordered food.
Nice.
It's this like kick-ass bistro right downtown, not a mile from where we are. And the cold brew they make is pretty awesome. So we started incorporating that into a drier stout, and it's awesome. We've got it on tap here and over there, and it's
I love it. I feel like I could have this in the morning. Wake me up.
Here's the important part, Dustyn. So Brian mentioned that the can has perspired a little bit, so we've lost some of the writing on the back. Sure. The percentage says 0.0. I don't think that's the percentage.
That's not right. The Yata, where is it up here? It must be on the other side.
I was like, hey, you give me a 0.0 beer, I'm gonna drink. What is it?
Oh, 6.0. That batch came out 6.0.
I asked because I was making sure it wasn't like 12%. And me and Brian were going to end up on like the other side of the camera here.
So in Tennessee, I can't make anything over 10.1 unless I get a license. So
is that everything? Because you mentioned you have, like, does that include like even if you're home, like can you homebrew like a little like small batch that's like for you alone?
If you're homebrewing it, nobody really knows, so it's fine.
As long, I know. I'm just curious.
Yeah. I mean, I made one that was an 11% Belgian quad that I had on my kegerator at home, and I told people not to get into that at a certain Halloween party, and there were people that were still drunk like well into November because of that beer. But yeah, no, just because of legal reasons here in town and like the licensure that we have, 10-1 is about as strong as we can go. We don't make much that's not within the 5.5 to 7.5 range. I feel like if you're going to pay for beer, it should work. So I don't make anything under 5.
Well, I've noticed too, like once you get to double digits, it's all the same. Whether you drink like 5.13% or 5.10% or even 9.5, really, you're already in that territory of like you're gonna feel it quicker. Just naturally speaking. Well, Dustyn, I want to kind of get you out on this. It's something me and Brian kind of end all of our interviews and collab sessions with. When somebody leaves your brewery over there in Clarksville, Tennessee, the Kings Bluff Brewery, what, Dustyn, do you want them to be thinking, feeling, and just saying to others when they walk out of your brewery?
That they're excited to see what we're going to have next. I mean, we've got 20 taps. We do a lot of seasonal stuff, a lot of test batches. So I want them to be excited about what's going to happen next week and be excited to come and hang out with us and talk with us again. That's really all I want.
Awesome.
Well, Dustyn, I want to say thanks as well. I mean, obviously you talked about your customer service, kind of what makes your brewery there. I think that I speak for Zach as well. We can definitely tell you're a very charismatic guy. I can tell that you enjoy what you do. And obviously, thanks to my parents, shout out to them for obviously putting us onto your brewery and being up there, and really appreciate it. Had a ton of fun here today. And I'm looking forward to myself personally getting up there and visiting. So I would love to stop by.
We might be calling you sooner than you think in Tennessee. We might be up there a lot sooner than you think.
I'll pour one for you myself.
My man, the beer lord, Dustyn over there from Kings Bluff Brewery. Dustyn, we'll chat soon, my friend. Thanks again, brother.
Cheers.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Craft Beer Playbook,
like
Blooper.
What
is a guayabera?
Some kind of horse.
Do we know what a guayabera is? I'm Googling
I don't know
it.
what that animal
I'm
is.
Googling it. What is a guayabera? I didn't spell that right at all. Could you spell it right now without looking at it?
Yeah. G-U-A. No.
Not your average bear there, guayabera.
See, I'm very cultured, so things are easy for me.
You're not cultured enough. It's an open-necked Cuban or Mexican shirt with 2 breast pockets and 2 pockets over the hips, typically having short sleeves and worn untucked. Looks like I know what you're getting for your birthday, and it's not the beer.
You should both wear guayaberas for the next
You should
episode.
totally wear one for the next episode. You should totally
You
wear
said
one.
it's Mexican, which makes me feel bad because my wife is Mexican and I didn't know what a guayabera was.
But now when she comes home, you can be like, babe, I'm going to buy a guayabera. Craft Beer Playbook. Now we're back. What's up? So that was great. Dustyn from Kings Bluff Brewery. Big shout out to him for hopping on from Clarksville, Tennessee with us here on the 13th edition of the Craft Beer Playbook. Excited to continue our journey with all of you that are listening and watching. And, I think the ironic part, Brian, is we're going to be in Tennessee this weekend. One of our best friends is getting married in Nashville. So we'll be up there. And when we return next week, we're going to have we're just going to kind of give you guys the next step, the evolution. I think we can call it season 2. I mean, we didn't decide how many episodes we're going to be in season 1.
We got to leave them on a cliffhanger then if we're going to.
Oh, I'm not telling them anything else. That's it. But this is episode 13, and it's the finale we just decided of season 1.
I'm not even prepared for that.
It's the season 1 finale. We're moving to season 2. Yep, rebranded, everything. But in the meantime, that was great though. Dustyn, fantastic, and I think it's just speaks to just how great the craft beer community is. It's something we always focus on. Your parents were just in Clarksville, Tennessee, stopped by this place, struck up a conversation.
Yeah.
They hit it off. Now we're drinking beer from Tennessee, and we're chatting with the guy that brewed it. I mean, that's phenomenal.
And he was awesome too. I mean, you can really tell the passion, right, that he's got for it. And
if we sat next to him at the bar and didn't know who he was, we would have had a similar conversation. Minus the titles in the background, obviously, but we would have been just talking beer and
quintessential
movies.
just craft beer guy, right?
Yeah.
The guy just loves it. You can tell he loves making people happy. He brews his wife for his beer for his wife. So
I love her oh, you can't brew over 10%. He's like, Allegedly.
He's got 11 Belgian quad in it.
Well, but like that's again, if you're brewing it at home and it's in your own fridge or on your own kegerator, like there's no law against that. Like you just can't sell it, you know. But
Right. Yeah.
you know, I'm glad he's still enjoying the fruits of his labor, or in this case, the beer of his labor. So out of the 4 that we had, I did actually like them all a lot.
I really did too.
Man, I'm gonna be honest. Like I think the oats, I did it again where we started. It was good to me because it had the hoppy smell in the front.
Well, let me pull up.
Well, that's why I brought it up. I figured we would go
Pull up.
We got to get through these tall boys.
I did like that, yeah.
So this week in baseball, there's opening day. It's on Thursday. And I know we talked a little bit about spring training and opening day and all that last week, just a smidge on episode 12. But I'm excited. I know the Rays start down in Miami. I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you know where the Orioles start? I just don't know, honestly.
I do not. No, sorry.
Yeah.
So
well, remember, we had Fangraphs gave them a 0.0% to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, they're a team that they're going to be one I'm watching for this year just to try to take that next step forward. I'm not going to be watching every game.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I'm going to be watching for them to take another step forward, just like they did last year. They got some young players. Yeah. I want to see their guys from the farm system kind of, get brought up and kind of see how that goes. But, obviously the big topic is the Rays and, whether or not they can kind of build off of the roster changes that they've made.
Well, and like I'll keep it kind of generic. I mean, certainly I could talk Rays till I turn blue in the face. I do love them. I don't hide that. But I think in terms of just general baseball, I'm going to actually look to the West Coast, man. Like, I just mean this, like, screw the Dodgers. Like, are you kidding me? They win the World Series. They add Trevor Bauer. Like, they're arguably better now than they were when they won the whole thing. Mookie Betts obviously back on board. Bellinger. I mean, it's just dumb how many guys. Justin Turner re-signed. Like, the Dodgers are hands down the odds-on favorite again.
Explain to me why. And this seems to be the case, honestly, with some baseball fans. Although I do see it a lot with, like, Yankees fans. But I see a sentiment from some baseball fans that there's never going to be a salary cap, and there shouldn't be a salary cap, although I heartily disagree. I think that if you want to get to the level of competitiveness that the NFL has, you have to have some sort of equality there. Explain to me why that's such a big barrier for MLB, because I just don't get it.
So a few things. I think people are always looking out for their own interests. So anybody that's a fan of the Yankees or the Red Sox, why would they ever want that? It gives them a competitive advantage, having the money.
Right. Well,
Dodgers as well. So that's on the fan side. On the business side, and it's a great question. And by the way, I'm fully on board with a salary floor and a salary cap. I think you're right. It would make everything equally as competitive. Everybody wins in that scenario. And we've seen it work so well in other sports. But in terms of like the why it hasn't happened, I love baseball. I'm one of the few left in my friend circle. Like, Brian, think about our buddies. I mean, we can talk football all day. We can sprinkle in some hoops. Shoot, we can even talk hockey. And some of them haven't even been to a hockey game, and they'll talk hockey.
Yeah.
Rarely do I get to talk baseball with all of our friends. Like, usually it's a conversation that's thrown out there, and like 4 or 5 of us jump in out of 10. And that's the only sport. And I'll say this, baseball hockey I think does enough on its own. If you go to a game, you're hooked. If you go to a baseball game, you won't necessarily feel that way if you're a new fan or an old fan that has been away from the game, because it does move so much slower. You have to appreciate the finite points of it, and a lot of younger people just don't. And honestly, we say younger people, but like those younger people are now middle-aged, right? We're talking 30-year-old and 40-year-olds are now like the people that we were saying are younger, plus the younger people.
Yeah, and I fully disagree with the sentiment that some people have that baseball is boring. I think that if you actually understand the game and you can appreciate the intricacies of it, it's not a boring sport. The problem is MLB does not do a good job of adapting.
Who's it catering toward? It's catered towards old people.
Right.
Period. Like, and I don't mean like old people like 30, right? 40, like 50 and up. They don't cater. And I just read a long article. I got to send this to you. Doesn't cater to women at all. Doesn't cater to kids. They're starting to try to cater to kids. Their hype video was Fernando Tatis, his bat flip, like Tim Anderson up in the White Sox, he's bat flipping. We should be embracing that kind of stuff. That's what makes it juicy. And the MLB is starting to embrace it. Mind you, I'm pretty sure Tatis got in trouble for that last year, if I remember correctly. And then they used it in their hype video this year. So it's a mixed message, because it's like, oh, follow the unwritten rules of baseball. But then there's this contingency of players and fans. The players' contingency, by the way, is growing every year, that are like, look, baseball's supposed to be fun. You guys are taking the fun out of baseball. Yeah. Let us bring it back.
They have to come around, right? Because you look at the NFL, they got so strict for a while with like fining people for any sort of celebration. And then they finally said, like, look, it's going to happen. Like, just let them do it.
The no fun league.
Now they got the big giant screen, and they all go over there and celebrate as a team together. Like, and again, does that add a ton of value to the game? No, but at least you have players that are having
not
fun
in a singular moment, but it does over the course of a full season.
Right.
And that's in 17 weeks of football. We're talking about 162 games. If you told me I had to watch 162 games of baseball and there wasn't going to be one bat flip,
and no one's allowed to have fun,
I'd be awfully disappointed. I'd probably bail after like 5 games.
Yeah.
You do that in the NFL, you're a quarter way through the season at least. So it's very different.
Yeah, you have to find a different way to market it, because with the number of games, it does get redundant very quick, because you're like, okay, well, we're playing the same team again 3 or 4 days in a row, or 3 or 4 games in a row, right?
Mm-hmm.
The NFL doesn't have that, right? It's a different team every week, and it's only 1 game a week. So it's that exclusivity of it that makes it more appealing. Baseball has to find a way to combat that. They just haven't done a good enough job appealing to a younger audience.
And I'm going to go back to Liberty Park here, because I had a nice trip, a nice stroll, and a nice bench moment there with that. So I'm going to go back to Liberty Park, the IPA from Kings Bluff Brewery over there in Clarksville, Tennessee. Again, shout out Dustyn. Appreciate you for hooking us up. So to that point, Brian, I read this too. Baseball doesn't have a version of Red Zone. NFL Red Zone has really changed the game in terms of how people view it. I mean, I watch the Bucs every week and the Steelers, but I also always have a TV on Red Zone, always. And I couldn't imagine not. Now, Red Zone is in unison with fantasy football. And those two things, I think, more than anything, have been what grew and continue to grow the National Football League outside of their normal games and everything else they do with the Super Bowl. Now, with baseball, we've played fantasy baseball. It's just not as fun, because it's too daily. Football, you can kind of set your lineup, give it 3 days, and come back and still be okay. Baseball, you do that, you're going to lose some games. You're going to miss out on some guys. It's just too. Well, but to that point, there's nothing on the MLB network that's even close to the Red Zone. Imagine being able to watch a channel where they just went to big strikeouts and home runs back to back. I'd sit there and watch that with the Rays on a different TV, like separately on like a Saturday all day.
Yeah.
But that's MLB Network's owned by the MLB. That goes back to the Major League Baseball front offices again. They're just not doing a good enough job. So you ask why it's the way it is. It's because they haven't done enough to fix it.
Well, I think you make a great point when it comes to like them being able to embrace that. The NFL has embraced fantasy football because they see what a cash cow it is, right? Mm-hmm. They see why now the NFL has become more, even with people protesting and saying they don't want to watch it, it's still continue to grow every year.
Huge numbers last year. Huge.
Because of fantasy football. I mean, we both agree. Like, I'm watching the Browns-Jaguars games, that I would have never, ever watched in the past, because I've got a running back, or I've got a wide receiver that I got to watch. It's like that brings extra interest. So if baseball would embrace that, right, and say, okay, like,
they're so far behind, Brian. I don't know if they can catch up.
But you got to try. Because at this point, the gap is widening.
Exactly, and to that point, it's widening because now the NFL has realized that gambling is the next thing. And people are going to start betting in stadiums, and that's coming. Like, we've already seen the NFL's already investing money in casinos and gambling like types of things, and the MLB will never do that, because then they would have to let Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame, which he should be already, but that's a separate story for a separate day. And the MLB is still going to be arguing about whether or not they should use human umpires that are statistically way more wrong than any robot would ever be, just based on the fact that it's technology and human. They'll still be arguing about that and arguing about bat flips. Well, the NFL is raking in another probably 25% of what they already are thanks to gambling.
Yeah.
That's how far the MLB is not only far behind, but they're going to, like you said, the gap is widening.
Simple enough to see with the like you said, the whole uproar over Tatis's bat flip. I mean, the fact that became such a big story just shows how far behind baseball is. And
we should be celebrating scoring. And we should be celebrating a badass doing, and not even just the bat flip,
right? Remember when literally the Padres coach got onto Tatis for hitting a home run and swinging when they were up, and it wasn't even like, we're not talking a game that was like 20-2. I think that the score at the time was like
a 5 or 7 run game somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, they were leading. It was the
I've seen those leads blown.
Exactly,
I've seen it happen.
Like, just, are you kidding me? We got to the point where we were worried about hurting the other team's feelings. Like, let these guys swing, let them have fun, recognize who your stars are. That's the thing that the NFL does way better than MLB. NFL recognizes who sells tickets, who sends the most viewership to these games, and those are the guys they focus on, right?
Yep.
MLB doesn't do that, right? You have this budding star in Fernando Tatis Jr., who everybody collectively loves because of the attitude and the energy he brings.
I'm a big Tim Anderson guy, too. I got no ties to the White Sox.
Right.
I can't tell you how many White Sox games overall I've watched. I love Tim Anderson. because he just doesn't give a shit. He's against the system. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have fun and I'm gonna be a badass. He's such a rogue and he's so good that, like, how do you not enjoy a guy like that?
They got to embrace that. They got to
Yeah,
embrace.
they haven't embraced Tim Anderson very much. I'm gonna be honest with you.
And that's the
Or
problem.
Tatis. Well, Tatis is like they're trying to act like they're behind him, but it's
Yeah.
like, no, you guys
They're
hated it.
reluctantly behind him. Yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to save their own ass by thinking they can tie their wagon to his. It's so disappointing. And again, I think the reason I get more irritated about it is because I love the game, and I'm sure you feel the same way. It's just a shame that.
No, I do love
that
the
it is
game,
set
and
up the
I
way
think
it is.
I played for many, many years through Little League, all the way up until just before high school, and it is frustrating when you hear people say like, "Oh, I don't watch baseball because it's boring." And like I said, it's really not, in my opinion. And I understand that there are a lot of sports fans who do like baseball who still will admit it's boring. I'll never admit it's boring. I do think it's interesting if you know what's going on, but they have to make changes. They've got to promote the game better. They have to embrace the change and where technology is going and the way fandom is these days. And I just feel like they haven't done that. And it gets kind of frustrating because they're, like you said, it's creating a further gap between even NBA. I mean, NBA now is far more popular than MLB is because of the way that they've started to kind of shift their focus towards their fans and how the game is.
I just sitting here, Brian, and I'm not in the marketing department for Major League Baseball. I could come up with like 10 ideas right now that would make the league better.
Yeah.
That they could easily implement. One of their big things for a lot of youngsters growing up is the scorecard, right? And you keep track.
Yeah.
Well, why not I'm sure there's a digital version of that, but why not have that as like a contest? Every day, if you're at the ballpark, you enter, whether it can be handwritten, it can be digital. And then the winner gets free tickets to tomorrow's game or something like that. And if you got everything right on the scorecard, you enter it. There's ways to get creative. There's ways to have fun. It's just a shame. I mean,
do the Rays still do the run the bases thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to remember because they did the pandemic stuff last year.
Yeah.
The last time it was a full fan thing, I'm almost positive. Yes, I'm almost positive. Yeah, where kids wait in line and then they.
I did that once, and that made my whole day.
I've seen you drunkenly run the bases at LSU once.
Yeah,
over at Baton Rouge.
A lot more happened on that LSU field. That's a story for a different time.
That's not the way to end season 1. We're in a good place right now. As we wrap things up here, it is the Craft Beer Playbook episode 13. We're gonna what we got? 42 minutes. What do you want to do any more beer? We good? We taking a break?
Yeah, let's finish
I
off.
I want the Yata cold brew stout, mainly because I keep
Yata.
thinking it's Yoda. And
it does kind of look like Yoda, and it's starting to really melt off.
Beer, I will.
That's terrible.
Oh.
As big of a Star Wars
I
fan
didn't
as
go
you
all in
are,
on
you
it.
have to.
I know.
You,
I only
you have
half
to go.
committed.
How can you go half commit on an
half
impression?
committed.
Imagine if comedians went half in on their impressions. They'd laugh them off the
So
stage.
we talked a lot about Cockcart last week. Hunter Dickinson is another fun name we had going for us. He's playing for Michigan. As we wrap things up here, quick look. Now, by the time this episode airs, we'll be probably getting like into those last 2 Elite 8 games. So I don't want to act like, we're going to predict what's going to happen.
That's true, and I can't sit here and say that we know who's going to win because I feel like
sure.
I feel like I do feel like Gonzaga's going to win, but the UCLA Michigan game I think could be pretty
interesting.
Close. Yeah.
So I just want to look overall before we get to the Final Four. Next time we talk, it'll be well past the Final Four, I think. Overall this tournament, it looks like it could literally be 3 1s and a 2. As much mayhem and carnage as there was, not just in the first day, second day, the first 3 days there was a lot of carnage.
Yeah.
And I argued that it wasn't great for the tournament because then you start to kind of lose that upset, like that there's all upsets.
Well,
but I've enjoyed this tournament. I'm happy it's back, man.
It's been. I think if I can pick one word to kind of describe this tournament, it would be seesaw, right? Because like you said, it started off with just crazy carnage.
Yep.
Then the seesaw was like, now we're looking at possibly, like I said, 2 or 3 1s and a 2 in the Final Four, which that hasn't happened in a long time.
Right.
And even in the games, you see this, like, you start watching the game and you're like 10 minutes in, you're like, oh, this is a blowout, I'm going to bed. And then all of a sudden that team like doesn't score for like 10 minutes and then the other team's up by 10. It's like this crazy seesaw back and forth that just happened in the game last night with Houston. I mean, and then it happened the other night with Alabama when they were playing, was it UCLA they played? Yeah, it was UCLA. Yeah. I mean, there's been these seesaw in these games, and I think it's fun because just when granted, I don't think that blowouts are fun. Nobody does. But because it's had that seesaw effect, because the tournament has had the seesaw effect, you've gotten a little bit of everything. If you like seeing the favorites in there, you're going to get that in the Final Four. If you like seeing the upsets, you got that in the first 2 rounds. This tournament has been a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy it's back. You know, I've definitely had some highs and lows myself in terms of watching and drinking and just the whole process, but it's unlike anything else in sports, and I just think we're lucky to have it back. We're lucky to have opening day back because that got stolen last year. We're barreling towards NHL playoffs, and the NFL is adding a game. So
let me ask you a question real quick, just on the basketball side.
Yeah.
At this point, so there's the Final Four still to go, but there's 2 more games tonight.
Yep.
I'm gonna give you a chance. If you want change anything, would you pick anything different about how you would see the rest of the season play out now at this point, or are you sticking with your championship matchup?
In terms of the brackets?
Right. So you've got 2 more games
that are left.
No, I'm saying from this point forward. From this point.
Oh, I've already lost my teams. Look,
I'm saying from this point forward, from tonight forward.
Oh, in the championship.
Right. Are you changing anything?
I still think Gonzaga and Baylor are the best 2 teams.
Okay.
I do.
Are you still picking Baylor to win?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not flipping over to Gonzaga?
No. It's so hard to go undefeated for a wire-to-wire season. Where I don't care what conference you're in. Statistically, it's just so tough. So odds are that probably won't happen. Although they're the 1 seed and then they're stacked, and yeah, I mean it'll be interesting. I'm glad that we got to again get all this back, and we were in such a dark place overall with sports a year ago. And I mentioned all these things are back now. The Lightning will probably have home games at MLB for the playoffs as the Cup champs. Like the Rays will have fans at opening day when they're home back at the Trop for the Yankees series in a couple weeks. It's just good. The NFL is adding a game. Like, it's good. Everybody's happy, man. It's good all around. It's good all around here, too, in the Craft Beer Playbook. Again, this is unknowingly the end of season 1, episode 13. 13 is a good number to end on. But we promise a bigger, better season 2. We're going to have more guests. We're going to have a better look. There's going to be a lot of things happening when Brian and I return. But just shout out again to everybody who's been a part of the ride so far. Specifically to Seventh Sun Brewery for having us out and putting us up, having our first live remote there, Bastet for taking care of us as well, and then obviously today with King's Bluff Brewery, our guy Dustyn over there in Clarksville, Tennessee, a little bit away from Tampa Bay. We're just excited to kind of continue growing this brand.
And shout out to you guys, our fans. I mean, this has made it worthwhile. I know my parents have been incredible supporters. I'll get like 12 notifications like on Facebook all at once, and I look, and my mom is just literally liking everything. So
well, your dad is too, but it's in a notebook. He's
he's checking it off. No, but
yeah,
I mean,
Melanie and David, we appreciate
obviously, my wife, his fiance,
Arielle, Fabi. You can name them. It's okay.
No, I know. I'm just saying. Like, there's so many people that have supported this journey, and
the dogs,
the Baloo. Remember Baloo?
Baloo. I was talking about the 3 in there that have been more part of the episode.
Bad we can't let them out. My dogs get a little excited when
maybe in season 2. Maya, Kiara, Mickey. He's allowed me to leave. My dogs and Oliver and Nemo. And shout out to a lot of you're right though. Like, a lot of people made this possible. Mark hooking us up with the Craft Beer Playbook.
Yeah, and our loyal fans. We got Justin Pegg.
Yep.
We got Leroy out there. Sarasota Hazy. I mean, you guys made this so much fun for us. So appreciate it. Keep spreading the name out there. Hopefully we can reach some more people that want to be a part of it. Gito Dan.
Still having her back. No, it's been great. And season 2 is going to be even bigger and better with better beer, better people. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't forget, by the way, follow us if you're not Untapped. Me and Brian have been very active the last couple of weeks on that. At the Craft Beer Playbook. We'd love to be friends with you on there. At the Craft Beer Playbook on both Instagram and Facebook. If you follow us, you'll see all the latest updates. On Twitter, it's at Beer Playbook. They're limiting our characters for some reason, so check us out on Twitter as well at Beer Playbook. And then the main thing is we want to keep reminding you guys, the craftbeerplaybook.com. You can catch our podcasts anywhere that you get podcasts. Spotify, iHeart, Apple, anything you do, Google Play. You can see our videos at youtube.com as well, the Craft Beer Playbook. But we want you to go to the website, thecraftbeerplaybook.com. Find the beer directory. It's something that I put together and something we plan to build even more in season 2. And you can find, if you're coming to Tampa Bay or you already live in Tampa Bay, it's the easiest way to get an idea of where to go, what area, what beers to check out. We've made it as simple as anywhere I've seen on the internet. I mean that. So again, we appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you guys in season 2.
Cheers.